Hi there, and welcome to this presentation on teaching design of technologies for mediating collaborative interaction in emerging pedagogical framework. My name is Peter Ruiten, and I've been working on this project together with Eva Eriksson, Olaf Torgesson, and Gukse Elif Baikal. Let me start by showing you the main outcome of the project. This is a screenshot of our online education resource. This is where all the materials that we have developed are available. And in this presentation, I am going to tell you the story of how we got to this point that you see on this slide. We start with collaboration. Collaboration is a very complex skill that involves coordination with other people, cooperating with them, and at its most advanced level, also reflective communication. Now, in a time where remote collaboration has become increasingly more important due to, for example, environmental agencies and pandemics, the need for designing and developing technologies that efficiently support and mediate collaborative interaction has become a high priority. Historically, most user interface research is focused on single user systems, although this has been challenged by several multi-user or group interfaces, which are sensitive to such factors as group dynamics and organizational structures. Now, collaborative technologies come with their own specific design challenges, such as technology that needs to be designed for being used by different groups of people, and that technology needs to be flexible and to be able to accommodate a variety of team behaviors and tasks. Now, when we want to teach the technology design for collaborative interaction, that involves imparting an attitude that is sensitive to coordination. And we set off with the aim to initiate a pedagogical framework for teaching the design of technologies for collaborative interaction in higher education. And we do so by transforming existing concepts, methods, and practices from research into concrete teaching activities with accompanying learning goals. Now, when we look at collaboration and collaborative interaction, we can see that there are several definitions of what this specifically is. Now, however, the terms related to collaboration, such as cooperation, coordination, teamwork, social interaction, etc., they're often used as synonyms or they're used interchangeably. And there's not really a systemization of the terms being used. For instance, social interaction is a vital but insufficient condition for collaboration because some social interactions do not involve shared goals, accommodation of different perspectives as organized attempts to achieve the goals. Now, recently, we've seen in the literature a tendency to adopt the levels of collaboration as were defined in activity theory. Now, with activity theory as a theoretical foundation, Engström defined 3 levels of collaborative interaction. And building on this definition, Bartram introduced a framework for collaborative interactions between users and mediating technologies. Now, and this framework consists of 3 different levels of collaboration. From the simplest to the most complex form, these are coordination, cooperation, and reflective communication. Now, the goal of collaborative technologies is to assist groups in communicating, in collaborating, and in coordinating their activities. And it can be defined as a computer-based system that supports groups of people that are engaged in a common task or have a common goal, and that provides an interface to a shared environment. Now, when we look at the differences between different people and different spaces, we can look at people being in the same place or people being in different places and working or collaborating at the same time or collaborating at different times. And we can fill in this table by basically writing down what each of these components mean. So face-to-face interaction is happening at the same place at the same time, where people are together in one room. So this is a synchronous interaction between individuals that are in proximity of each other. Remote interactions happen at the same time, but in different places. And a typical technology that is used for this is video conferencing. Continuous tasks happen at different times in the same place. And typical examples of this are team rooms and large public displays where people share different types of information. Communication and coordination needs to apply at different times and different places, where typical examples are use of email and maybe the use of a group calendar. Now, there's one area missing, namely that of technologies that support hybrid interactions. Hybrid collaboration refers to collaborative practices that involve simultaneous, co-located, and remote collaboration with phases of both synchronous and asynchronous work that spans multiple groupware applications and devices. Hybrid collaboration switches back and forth between all four quadrants of the time-space matrix. There's constant transitions between co-located and remote, as well as being synchronous and asynchronous collaboration. Now, in the work presented in this presentation, we apply this thinking of collaborative technologies as a spectrum with constant transitions in time, space, and level of collaboration. Now, we applied a three-phased model for conducting educational design research, and we developed educational materials as like an underlying and guiding research and development framework. Now, the different solutions that we take, that we find, they can take the form of educational products and materials that both support teachers in their educational practice and at the same time seek to discover new knowledge that can inform future research, maybe future development and practice within that domain. So in the first phase, we explored and analyzed the existing domain of teaching design of collaborative technologies. So we made an inventory of existing teaching practices and research production at our own universities. Now this included searching Scopus for all kinds of different keywords and titles. And we initially found 135 results, but only one of those addressed teaching collaborative technologies. Now, in this phase, we also invited two experts and we interviewed them on their teaching practices regarding the design of collaborative technologies. And we further snowballed on future research resources that we could potentially include. Now, based on the first phase, 2 or 3 core competencies were identified and several overarching learning objectives were extrapolated and described. After this, we applied the solo taxonomy to the competencies and learning objectives to describe how we as teachers can develop students' competencies from a beginner to an advanced level. And this led to the construction of an overarching model for how teachers can plan, carry out, and evaluate teaching and learning on the design of collaborative technologies. Now, we developed several concrete learning activities consisting of lectures and exercises. And in the third phase, we applied an iterative peer review of all the activities using the pedagogical pattern evaluation method that was called shepherding. And additionally, the teaching activities were put into practice and they were evaluated through 30 pilots involving around 40 or so teachers and more than 500 students coming from various disciplines, programs, institutions, and educational contexts in 5 universities in 4 different countries. Now, when we look at the results, we see that the overarching learning objective that we developed for the entire pedagogical framework is to develop students' knowledge and skills for how to design technology that mediates collaborative interaction. In order to strive for this learning objective, the teaching activities that the framework consists of are divided into concepts, methods, and practices, each with its own learning objectives and pedagogical pattern. Now, after we did this, we noticed that teachers, they can explore the learning objectives for each activity and select those that are the most relevant to their discipline, curriculum, or course. Teachers can combine the different concrete teaching activities that move students from a simple to a more complex level of understanding of designing collaborative technologies in accordance with the Solo taxonomy. Teachers can also combine different concepts, methods, and practices that create a broad foundation for students to become designers of collaborative technologies. Now, some of the teachers that were using the patterns that we've created, they gave concrete input for further development and the design iterations of the teaching materials. And these teachers state that the added value of the piloted teaching material were the following. First, they see a professional development within technology design for collaborative interaction. They also regard this as a qualitative update of the design curriculum of collaborative technologies. And they think the materials are an increased capacity to teach technology design for collaborative interaction in relevant and innovative ways. Now, the pedagogical framework that we developed is the result of an inductive approach to the pedagogical pattern method, which means that we started with our own and our colleagues' research and teaching practices, and we snowballed from there. In future work, we would encourage further evaluation based on feedback from students and not only rely on teachers' conception based on the students' observable learning. So really involve the students more in the further development of these materials. Now, of course, we also experienced some challenges, which led to some specific considerations. So the first one is the lack of a common definition of collaboration. The term collaboration is used interchangeably with similar, but not always synonymous words, such as social, cooperative, and coordination, and especially in the literature regarding technology design studies. Therefore, in our teaching materials, we adopted like a way to formulate the term collaboration in order to identify the elements that we think are important to include. So we see collaboration as a very complex phenomenon, which is not only difficult to define, but also difficult to analyze. And this lack of a common definition and level of complexity of the phenomena for analysis yields a diverse but scattered knowledge of how to design for and evaluate the collaborative interaction. Most literature has an emphasis on a specific technology or application and not on the collaborative aspects as such. And this led to many discussions on what is specific with designing technologies for mediating collaborative interaction. And the consequence of this is that much of the material that we have been developing has been excluded for being classified as being too general. Regarding the methods that we applied, we can say that applying the pedagogical pattern method worked well for the development of the teaching materials presented in this framework, and especially the use of the solo taxonomy as a shared language for defining learning objectives was experienced by the team as very fruitful. Also, the sequence of teaching learning activities helped us to provide at the same time a holistic and a detailed take on the various materials, such that the lecture and the exercises that we created became better aligned. Now, in this presentation, I've tried to introduce the initial pedagogical framework for teaching design of technologies that mediate collaborative interaction to you. And in this framework, collaborative technologies range across many different application areas and without a well-framed definition. Still, the core elements include social interaction, either synchronous or asynchronous, having multiple people, having a shared goal, using technology as mediators between multiple people, intention of designers and user appropriation. Now, we really hope that this framework can inspire other teachers in higher education to dive into the complex world of teaching in designing technologies for mediating collaborative interaction. Thank you very much for listening.